Shabbat Shalom, everyone. We welcome you virtually to another Shabbat Shacharit service this morning at Temple Israel. It is our hope that all of you are well, healthy, and able to join us in peace, to sing together and pray together virtually, knowing that you are part of a larger community, and that this morning, as we all join together, we are not alone. We are together in prayer. I wanted to mention that recently, Temple Israel has purchased some copies of Mishkan Tefillah for travelers. We saw that in our Thursday reminder. Next week, next Friday's service, we will begin leading out of that to provide some page numbers. You can come in and get a copy and bring it home with you. More info on that afterwards with announcements. But this will be our the last service where since we just got them and just announced on Thursday, that we're not going to center around those page numbers, but instead just have a Shacharit service. And next week, you'll be able to follow along if you like. You can come in and get those copies. We have 30 copies. So if you'd like to come in, please contact us. And again, more information during our announcements. But Shabbat Shalom to everyone. We hope that everyone is well and healthy this morning. For those of us who choose to wear talit when we daven, we say the prayer on page 190, Baruch Atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu lehitatef batzitzit. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to wrap ourselves in the fringes. Amen. May the one whose spirit is with us in every righteous deed be with all who work for the good of humanity and bear the burdens of others, and who give bread to the hungry, who clothe the naked, and take friendless into their homes. May the work of their hands endure, and may the seed they sow bring abundant harvest. Let us give thanks to God for the inner workings of our bodies. The words of Asher Yatzar, God, we give praise for creating the body's many pathways and openings, creating the human body with skill. For if one were to be wrongly opened or closed, it would be impossible to endure and stand before you. We sing these words of Asher Yatzar, giving thanks to God for our health. We'll then move directly into the words of Elohai Neshama, giving thanks to God for the pure soul that is in us. Asher Yatzar et ha'adam b'chokmah yoramo nekavim nekavim arudim arudim Asher Yatsa Kena'anam Yehovah Urabo Degadim Degadim Alulim 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 Isnei She'im Yepatach Echadei Yisatem Echadei אפשר להתקיים ולעמוד לפניך ברוך אתה אדוני כופף ובשר ומפעיל עשור אלוהי אפשר שנתת לי אתה בראת, אתה יצרת, אתה נבחרת, ואתה נשמת, ושמרת בקרבי, אלוהי אלוהי שנתת לי One second here, something's a little bit off. There we go. There we are. Ooh, there it was. Goodness. Much better. Religion embraces both faith and action. The primary quality is action, for it lays the foundations for faith. The more we do good, the more readily do we grasp the meaning of duty and life. And the more readily do we believe in the divine from which stems the good. As we awaken this morning, let this be our thought. May our days be filled with acts of loving kindness. Let us be drawn to learning and discernment. May our actions be shaped by mitzvot. Keep us from iniquity, disgrace, and sin. May we not be overwhelmed by temptation or despair. Distance us from evil people and false friends. Let us cultivate a life of goodness. May our hands reach out in kindness, and we will serve God through acts of righteousness. Today and every day, may we merit God's mercy by living our lives with compassion and love. Holy One of blessing, draw us to your words. Teach us the art of sacred living. Baruch atah Adonai, hamlamed chasadim tovim le'amo Yisrael. The prayer for the engagement of Torah. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu la'asok b'divrei Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, our God, sovereign of the universe, who hallows us with mitzvot, commanding us to engage with the words of Torah. From the cowardice that shrinks from new truth, from the laziness that is content with half-truths, from the arrogance that thinks it knows all truth. O God of truth, deliver us. Blessed is Adonai, teacher of Torah, to your people Israel. Baruch atah Adonai hamlamed Torah le'amo Yisrael. We sing together these words of Elu Divarim. These are the things that are limitless, the things in which a person can enjoy and are its own reward in this world. Deeds of compassion, study, hospitality, being devoted in prayer, making peace. The Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, the study of Torah, encompasses them all. For our teachers and their students, and the students of the students, we ask for peace and loving kindness. We say Amen. For those who study Torah here and everywhere, may they be blessed with all they need, and let us say Amen. We ask for peace and loving kindness, and to that we say Amen. We begin the words of Pizukei de Zimra with the words from Psalm 92, Mizmor Shir LeYom HaShabbat. It is good to praise Adonai, to sing hymns to your name, O Most High. Tov lehodot Adonai, uzamer l'shimcha elyon. The words of Mizmor Shir. With this do I prepare myself to thank, praise, and glorify my Creator. Blessed are you, Sovereign of life, whom we praise with songs of glory. Baruch atah Adonai melech mecholal b'tishbachot. Countries grow old and fall apart. Nations decline, torn. Generations grow moss and gather dust. Still every morning, a chapter of Psalms stands by the window in the synagogue and intones its eternal chant over the world's tears. With those words, we come to Psalm 150. These words telling us to praise God's name with harp and lyre, blasts of the horn, timbrel and dancer, lute and pipe, resounding cymbals. Kol neshama tehallel, let all that breathes praise God. There was a secret chord that David played, and it pleased the Lord, but you don't really care for music, do you? Those like this, the fourth, the fifth, the minor fall, the major lift, the baffling composing, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, el recoche, hallelujah, tiranzo, hallelujah, 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 Lord be Lord, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah, take us so far. Hallelujah, never let me go. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, give me my home. Hallelujah, meeting with God. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, hallelujah. Hallelujah, titillate Shama, hallelujah, titillate Torah, hallelujah, hallelujah. Don't you mind, hallelujah, 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 hallelujah. Hallelujah. We come to the words of Baruch Hu. You have my attention, which is a tenderness beyond what I may say. And I have your constancy to something beyond myself. The force of your commitment charges us. We live in the sweep of it, taking courage one for the other. What makes a fire burn in space between the logs? A breathing space. Too much of a good thing, too many logs packed in too tight can douse the flames, almost as surely as a pail of water would. So building fires requires attention to the spaces in between, as much as to the wood. When we are able to build open spaces in the same way we have learned to pile on the logs, then we can come to see how it is fuel and absence of fuel together that make the fire possible. We only need to lay a log lightly from time to time. A fire grows simply because the space is there, with openings in which the flame that knows just how it wants to burn can find its way. Rise and open the door that is shut. Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I breathing? La 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la, la 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 la. Are you listening to my prayer? Can you hear my voice? Can you understand? Am I awake? Am I breathing? Us awake and prepared, move forward. You are praised who rolls out the rough, raw clay of the universe into delicate vessels of light. And from nothing at all, we could perceive in a world that has turned old a shimmering new creation right before our eyes, made this moment just for us. How much of life reveals your presence? How much Torah unfolds from each new flower, from each new wave that breaks upon the sea? You are praised who forms the clay and cloaks our lives, the delicate vessels which contain our light. Baruch atah Adonai Yotzer ha-Orot. We come to the words of Shema, the watchword of our faith, our declaration of monotheism, And as we say these words apart, we are together, saying them just as every Jew says them throughout the world. We proclaim our unity and our belief. Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad, Baruch Shem Kevod Malchuto Leolam Vaed. If people fall, can they not also rise? If they break away, can they not return? The stork in the sky knows when to migrate. The dove and the swallow know the season of return. What human instinct knows the time to turn back? What cue sparks the conscience of the soul? We pray to sense this day anew, attuned to the call of sacred living. Life without integrity is like loosely hanging threads, easily fraying from the main cloth, while in acts of piety we learn to understand that every instant is like a thread, raveling out of eternity to form a delicate tassel. We must not cast off the threads, but weave them into the design of an eternal fabric. Each day points to eternity. The fate of all time depends upon a single moment. We stand on the parted shores, waiting for COVID-19 to go away. As we stand on those parted shores, we know that we have been there before, waiting for the sea to open and for us to go through. We know that freedom lies on the other side. For now, we patiently wait, knowing that it will come. We sing these words of Mi Chamocha, the Shirat Hayam. Sor Yisrael, Kuma be'ezrat Yisrael, Uvdei Chinumecha Yehuda v'Yisrael, Go Aleinu Adonai Tzevaot Shemo, Kedosh Yisrael, Baruch Atah Adonai, Ga'al Yisrael. We turn now to the heart of our service, the words of our Amidah. We know that in times like this, it is difficult for us to find the words of prayer. So we say these words from Psalm 51 to ask God to help us to open up our mouths so that we can pray this morning. No matter what is going on in our world, we ask for assistance from God to help us continue to pray. Adonai Sifatai Tiftach Ufi agi tehilatecha. Adonai, open up my lips, that my mouth may declare your praise. We bless God for being the shield of our ancestors. Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu, Elohei Avoteinu v'Imotenu, Elohei Abraham, Elohei Yitzhak, Elohei Yaakov, Eloi Sarah, Eloi Rivka, Eloi Rachel, Eloi Leah. El Hagadol, Hagibor, Hanora, El Elyon, Gomel Chasadim Tovim, Vekonei Hakol, Vezocher Hasdei Avot Vimahot, Umevi Grula Livnei Bneihem, Leman Shemo Be'ahava. Melech Ozer Moshiach Umagen, Baruch Atah Adonai, Magen Avraham Vezrat Sarah. Blessed are you, Adonai, Sarah's helper, Abraham's shield. We bless God's strength and power. Atah Gibor Leolam Adonai, Mechayeh Hakol Atarav Lechoshia Morid Atah, Mechalkel Chaim Bechesed, Mechaye Hakol Berachamim Rabim, Somech Nofnim Berofeh Cholim, Umatir Asurim, Umakayem Emunato, Lishenei Afar, Michamocha Bar Kifurot, Umidom Melach, Melech Memihit Umechayeh, Umatmiach Yeshua, V'ne'eman Natal Chayot HaKol, Baruch Atah Adonai, Mechayeh HaKol. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives life to all. We bless God's holiness. Nekadesh et shimcha ba'olam, keshem shemakdishim oto b'shmei marom, kakatuv al yad neviecha, v'kara ze el ze ve'aman, kadosh, 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 Adonai tziva'ot, Melonenu madir shimcha b'chol haaretz, Baruch kevod Adonai mimkomo. Echad hu Eloheinu, hu Avinu hu Malkeinu, hu Moshienu v'hu Yashmienu, v'rachamav l'nei kol chai. Ani Adonai Elohechem, Yimloch Adonai leolam, Elohai Tzion, ledor vador akish. V'shivchacha Eloheinu mipino lo yamush leolam va'ed. Baruch Adonai ha'el hakadosh. Blessed are you, Adonai, the holy God. We come together in prayer, asking for God to sim shalom, to make peace, but not just shalom, which the world needs so desperately, but also tovah u'bracha, chen v'chesed v'rachamim, goodness and blessing, grace, kindness, and mercy to all people. We sing together in a world that needs peace. We sing together for peace for individuals and for communities. For peace around the world, we pray for shalom. Pray for God to sim shalom. Sim shalom. Tovah u'bracha. Sim shalom, tovah u'bracha. Sim shalom, tovah u'bracha. Sim shalom, tovah u'bracha. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Chen v'chesed, chen v'chesed v'rachamim. Rachamim shalom, tovah u'bracha. Sim shalom, tovah u'bracha. Aleinu, עלינו ועל כל ישראל. שים שלום שים שלום טובה At this time, we invite you to take a few moments of silent prayer, reflection, or meditation. We will meet back to sing these words. May the words of my mouth and the meditations of my heart be acceptable to you, Adonai, my rock and redeemer. Oseh shalom bermomav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael, imru amen. May the one who makes peace in the high heavens make peace over us, all Israel, and who inhabit the earth. We say amen. Please pray silently for just a few moments. Shalom, say shalom aleichem, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, shalom aleichem, ve'al kol Yisrael, yaseh shalom, shalom aleichem, ve'al kol Yisrael. 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 Friends, we come now to words of Torah. And though we are not together to rise and touch the Torah and be close to the Torah, I hope that this morning I can bring it to you and bring these words of Torah to you as much as possible virtually. Torah is usually read in places of gathering so that all can hear it. So may this virtual live stream be our gathering place, a day of gathering as we come together, join together in the words of Torah. This week's Torah portion is a double portion, Tazria, Metzora. And the part that we'll be reading this morning and focusing on comes from Metzora. This morning I'll be reading 15:19 to 30 and speaking about some of these things in this portion. But before we do that, let us declare the greatness of God and give honor to the Torah. May God be with you and may God bless you. V'natan lanu et Torato, Baruch atah Adonai noten Torah. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. Amen. V'yishakit yizavaha, dam yizavaha, v'yishara, shiv'at yamim tehiyeh b'nidaha, v'chol nogeh baha yitma al ha'areh, v'chol asher tishkav alav b'nidataha yitma, v'chol asher teshe alav yitma, v'chol nogea b'mishkava yechabes bagadav, v'rachat b'mayim v'tamei ad ha'areh, v'chol הנוגע v'chol kali asher teishev alav יכבס בגדיו, רחץ במים וטמא עד הארץ, ואם על המשכב הוא עול אף כלי אשר היא ישבת עליו בגאובו, יטמע על הארץ. ואם ששכוב ישכב איש אותה, ותהי נדתה עליו וטמא 7 ימים, וכל המשכב אשר ישכב עליו יטמע, וישע כי יזוב זוב דם ימים רבים, ולא את נידתה, או כי תזוב על נידתה כל ימי זוב טומאתה, כי מי נידתה תהיה טמאה היא. כל המשכב אשר תשכב עליו כל ימי זובה, כמשכב נידתה יהיה לה, והוכח לי אשר תשב עליו, טמא יהיה כטומאת נידתה. וכל הנוגע בם, כל נגע בם יטמע, וכיבס בגדיו ורחץ במים וטמא עד הארץ. אם תרה מזובה וספרה לו לה 7 ימים ואחר תטהר, וביום השמיני תגדלה 2 תורים או 2 בני יונה, והביאה אותם אל הכהן, אל פתח אוהל מועד, ועשה הכהן את האחד התחת, ואת האחד עולה, וכיפר אליה הכהן לבני אדוני, מזוב טומאתה. ברוך אתה אדוני אלוהינו מלך העולם, אשר נתן לנו תורת אמת וחיי עולם נטע בתוכנו. ברוך אתה אדוני נותן התורה. Blessed are you, Adonai, who gives the Torah. When a woman has a discharge, her discharge being blood from her body, she shall remain in her impurity 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything that she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean, and anything that she sits on shall be unclean. Anyone who touches her bedding shall wash her clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. And anyone who touches any object on which she has sat shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. Be it the bedding or be it the object in which he has sat, on touching it, he shall be unclean until evening. And if a man lies with her, her impurity is communicated to him. He shall be unclean 7 days, and any bedding on which he lies shall become unclean. When a woman has a discharge of blood for many days, not at the time of her impurity, or when she has discharge beyond her period of impurity, she shall be unclean, as though at the time of her impurity, as long as her discharge lasts. Any bedding on which she lies while her discharge lasts shall be for her like bedding during her impurity. Any object on which she sits shall become unclean, as it does during her impurity. Whoever touches them shall be unclean. He shall wash his clothes, bathe in water, and remain unclean until evening. When she becomes clean of her discharge, she shall count off 7 days, and after that she shall be clean. On the 8th day she shall take 2 turtle doves and 2 pigeons, and bring them to the priest at the entrance to the tent of meeting. The priest shall offer the one as a sin offering, and the other as a burnt offering, and the priest shall make expiation on her behalf for her unclean discharge before the Lord. Fun stuff. We'll talk about that in a moment. For our Haftorah portion, and before we get to our Haftorah, actually, we think of those who are in need of healing. As we are close to Torah, we feel close to God, so we choose to recognize those in our midst who are in need of prayer and healing, whether it be physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. Here at Temple Israel, we think of and give strength to Jason Beckner, Chuck Bogard, Eileen Goss, Harry Herschel, Helen Johnson, Harriet Morrison, Sandy Perlman, and Sharon Tallis. To those names, we invite you to add any other names, whether on Facebook or on YouTube, any of those names of those in your community or elsewhere that you know of who are in need of healing this morning or this week. Please feel free, if comfortable, to add them, to type them in. So please feel free. Seems like the chat is not working on YouTube, so I apologize for that, friends. But on Facebook, there is an ability for people to type in a name of those who you'd like us to pray for this morning. For those on YouTube, I'm not sure why it's not working, but please say those names aloud and know that we are with you in spirit, and we will pray for them as well. We also think of all those who are in need of healing from COVID-19. We give strength to the health professionals who are on the front lines of this battle every day. And we ask God to give strength and healing to those who have lost family members to COVID-19 as well. And we hope that all will be healthy and well, and that this virus will dissipate soon, and that refuah shlema will be to everyone in need. Yishaberach avotenu v'imotenu Avraham, Yitzhak v'Yaakov, Sarah, Rivka, Rachel v'Leah, hu yivarech et hacholim. HaKadosh Baruch Hu yimalei rachamim aleichem, l'chalimam u'rabatam v'chasikam v'yishlach lachem me'rirav refuah shlema min hashamayim, refuat hanefesh, refuat haguf, hashta b'garam zman karim ne'omar amein. May the one who blessed our ancestors Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Leah, bless and heal those who are ill. May the Blessed Holy One be filled with compassion for their health to be restored and their strength to be revived. May God swiftly send them a complete renewal of body and spirit. And to that we say, Amen. We come to the words of our Haftorah this morning. Our Haftorah begins on 1 Kings 7:3. The Sidra, the Torah portion from Tazria Metzora, deals with the treatment of skin diseases, often referred to as leprosy. And so the Haftarah tells the tales of 4 lepers and their role during the siege of Samaria. Like the previous Haftarah, the one for Tazria, this one, Metzora, belongs to the cycle of Elisha. In this case, how his prediction of a dramatic turn of events would come true. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam asher bachar b'nbiim tovim v'ratza b'divreihem ana'amarim be'emet. Baruch atah Adonai abocher b'torah u'Moshe abdoho u'Yisrael amo v'nbiei ha'emet v'tzedek. It was paneled above with cedar and the planks that were above the 45 columns, 15 in each row. And there were 3 rows of window frames with 3 tiers of windows facing each other. All the doorways and doorposts had square frames with 3 tiers of windows facing each other. He made the portico of columns 50 cubits long, 30 cubits wide. The portico was in front of the columns, and there were columns in the canopy in front of them. He made the throne portico where it was to pronounce judgment, the hall of judgment. It was paneled with cedar from floor to floor. The house that he used as residence in the rear courtyard in the back of the portico was of the same construction. Solomon also constructed a palace like that portico for the daughter of Pharaoh whom he had married. All these buildings, from foundation to coping all the way to the great courtyard, were of choice stones, hewn across to measure, smooth on all sides. The foundations were huge blocks of choice stones, stones of 10 cubits and stones of 8 cubits, above which were choice stones hewn again according to measure of cedar wood. The large surrounding courtyard had 3 tiers of hewn stone and a row of cedar beams, the same for the inner court of the house of the Lord and for the portico of the house. King Solomon sent for Hiram and brought him down from Tyre. He was the son of the widow of the tribe of Naphtali, and his father had been Tyrenian, a coppersmith. He was endowed with skill, ability, and talent for executing all work in bronze. He came to King Solomon and executed all his work. He cast 2 columns of bronze. One column was 18 cubits high and measured 12 cubits in circumference, and similarly the other column. He made 2 capitals cast in bronze to be set upon the 2 columns, the height of each with the 2 capitals being 5 cubits. Also nets of meshwork with festoons of chainwork for the capitals that were on top of the columns, 7 for each of the 2 capitals. He made the columns so that there were 2 rows of pomegranates encircling the top of one network to cover the capitals that were on the top of the pomegranates, as he did the same for the network of the second capital. Capitals upon the columns of the portico were of lily design, 4 cubits high, and also the capitals upon the 2 columns extended above the necks of the bulge that was beside the network. There were 200 pomegranates in rows around the top of the second capital. Fun times. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, tzor kol ha'olamim, tzadik b'chol adorot, ha'el ha'ne'eman, ha'omer v'yoseh, ha'medaber u'mekayem, shekol devarav emet v'tzedek, al ha'torah v'al ha'avodah v'al ha'mi'im v'al yom ha'shabbat hazeh, shenatata lanu Adonai Eloheinu liktushav limucha lechavod u'tifaret. Al ha'kol Adonai Eloheinu, אנחנו מודים לך ומברכים אותך, יתברך שמך בפי כל חי תמיד לעולם ועד. ברוך אתה אדוני מקדש השבת. So, okay, so give me 2 seconds, friends, and I will grab my sermon for you. So 1 second, please. Sorry about that. There it was on the copier, waiting for me. All right, friends. So like I said earlier, we are in a double portion this morning of Tazria Metzora. And this morning we read from Metzora, which I call the ickiest parsha in the Torah, with Tazria, the previous one, coming in a close second. With our double portion occurring this week, Jews around the world get to read about leprosy, scaly skin, hair infections, and then move right into human discharge, bodily fluids, and of course, the laws about menstruation. Believe it or not, it was the last subject that I wanted to talk about this morning because, like so many things, starting at verse 19 in Leviticus, when a woman has a discharge, her discharge being blood from her body, she shall remain in her impurity 7 days. Whoever touches her shall be unclean until evening. Anything she lies on during her impurity shall be unclean. Anything she sits on will be unclean. Be it the bedding, all that stuff. If a man lies with her, her impurity is communicated to him. He shall be unclean for 7 days. And any bedding in which he lies shall be unclean. When she becomes clean of her discharge, she shall count off 7 days, and after that she'll be clean. So this passage, these few verses, have led to entire rabbinic volumes about women and whole sections devoted to what we call the subject of nidah, ritual impurity due to menstrual blood. Author and Professor Dr. Eve Levavi Feinstein explains it this way, really nicely. Halakha, Jewish law, considers a woman nidah for at least 7 days, in keeping with Leviticus 15, and prohibits sex during that time, even if her bleeding has ceased. The mikveh, a bath, after menstruation likewise draws on Leviticus 15's ritual purity laws. This interpretive move was one of the first steps towards the creation of the laws of nidah, or family purity. So while it's a given that women immerse themselves in a mikveh after their periods in rabbinic Judaism, Rabbi Zeb Farber teaches us that where this idea originated is actually unclear. It may be that this practice existed in biblical times and represented an alternative to the practice reflected in the priestly text of Leviticus. For example, the famous story of David and Bathsheba. David sees Bathsheba washing with water as she sanctified herself from her impurity. Presumably, the story is telling the reader that she's washing herself as part of purification ritual to remove the impurity of nidah. So you might be asking, why focus on this subject this week? Well, as some of you may have read, The Atlantic recently published a fascinating article entitled "Orthodox Women Are Facing an Impossible Choice Right Now," with the subtitle, "Women Who Observe the Jewish Laws of Sexual Purity Have to Immerse in a Ritual Pool after their period. Doing so during an outbreak is complicated and potentially risky." The article gives a pretty great modern understanding of nidah and the rite of the mikveh by explaining that in order to exit the state of nidah, women must visit the mikveh, usually a small, humid, windowless room, where another woman watches them dip naked into a pool of water that maybe a dozen other women have already used. So obviously, this is especially problematic in times of COVID-19, when going into public places, certainly pools, can be extremely risky to those that observe these customs. There are those women who are choosing to still risk a quick dip in the mikveh, but as Amy Barron, a mother of 5, told The Atlantic, every time any of us go outside, we're all just petrified about touching, petrified about breathing. There are 1,000 surfaces that I have to put my things down on that could have been infected, contaminated. So those of us who do not have an attachment to these laws of purity might be asking, why risk it? Indeed, isn't the Talmudic principle of pikuach nefesh, the idea that any law can be overturned in order to preserve life, a perfect fit here? Well, as it turns out, yes and no. Pikuach nefesh can certainly override the mandatory visit of a woman to the mikveh, but this comes with repercussions. According to the laws we read in Leviticus and the rabbinic understandings that follow, if women do not visit the mikveh, they are prohibited from engaging in sexual congress with their husbands. As the article in The Atlantic explains, for most women who observe nidah, skipping immersion and having sex anyway is likely out of the question. It's quoted, "It would be like eating pig." In other words, pikuach nefesh can only solve part of the problem, but causes others. And while sex might seem something that seems non-essential for some, in the Orthodox family, in the Orthodox community, it's the way to build a family. And this problem delays their conceiving. Batsheva Marcus, an Orthodox Jewish sex therapist, told The Atlantic, "It's wrenching," she says. "Do something that you feel religiously not okay with, or do something that makes you feel unsafe. Neither of those are good options. They're terrible options," she said. So after reading all of this, I went on a hunt to find a little bit more about nidah and these laws. And I think it's important to state that while Reform Judaism certainly allows practices surrounding nidah and the mikveh as part of our informed choice, the majority of progressive Jews and rabbis have long associated this practice to have misogynistic, patriarchal, even controlling undertones. It's necessary for we as progressive Jews to understand that the idea that a woman is unclean due to normal bodily function deserves historical distance. As the Torah, a woman's commentary, teaches, while in Leviticus 15 the term nidah is neutral and without any stigma, some later biblical texts use the term nidah as a term of abomination and revulsion. This includes Leviticus, Lamentations, Ezra, 2 Chronicles. In addition, Ezekiel, the prophet of 6th century BCE, justifies the destruction of Jerusalem by saying, "Their ways were in my sight like the impurity of a menstruous woman." So speaking of historical distance, I feel it also important to point out that menstruation was quite different for those living in biblical times than in modern times, as again, the women's commentary teaches us so well. It says women in Israel probably menstruated less frequently than modern women for several reasons. Due to sparser diet, female in pre-modern times began to menstruate on average at age 14, as opposed to average age of 12 today. Women married soon after they began to menstruate, and generally they experienced more pregnancies in their lifetime than the average modern Jew counterparts. In addition, it mentions breastfeeding, typically for 3 years, would have further reduced the number of menstrual cycles they experienced. Therefore, the women's commentary says the regulations in this passage, meaning Leviticus 15, which we read, probably had a smaller practical impact than we might first imagine. So what else? Additionally, we have to understand the mindset of the Levitical writer, as well as the rabbis who wrote about these laws after. I think it's obvious to mention that both the priestly writer, the priestly source, who likely crafted these laws in Leviticus, as well as all the rabbis who built the halakha surrounding it, were men. Besides that, we've spoken about the P writer before, the priestly writer, an author from a school that lived in a world where he believed in binaries and purity, attempting to remove chaos from the world. But as Mary Douglas notes in her work Leviticus as Literature, she notes that the Leviticus writer has a bad name as a formalist, intent on minute observance of ritual, also as excessively preoccupied with sex and disease. Compared with other religious teachers, the Levitical writer, she says, is not unusually high-minded or obsessed with cleanliness or sex denial. Additionally, biblical scholar Jacob Milgram argues that the P writer, the priestly writer, concentrates on the effect of impurity on persons and objects and not on divine sanctions for its bearers. And he maintains that P, the P writer, must have believed that this act, meaning the sex during menstruation, which we spoke about, bore a penalty, because P is much concerned, indeed obsessed, with the potential contamination of the sanctuary by Israel's impurities. So in other words, we have to consider the source of the writer itself. As for the importance of nidah to the rabbis, as Rabbi Farber explains, for the rabbis there would have been even stronger impetus. Since the laws of purity and impurity became largely theoretical in rabbinic Judaism after the destruction of the temple, nidah took on extra importance. Since according to Leviticus 18 and 20, it's forbidden for a man to have relations with a nidah, this particular purity law outlived the others. A ritual separating the state of nidah from the state of purity may have become more significant, since this would have been only purification ritual remaining as lived experience. So it's this last point that I think we can use to argue against the halachic prohibition of sexual relations without the mikvah during the time of the coronavirus. Just as the destruction of the temple was a significant event that pushed nidah and purity laws with women to be more substantial, perhaps we can look at the world today, the experience of COVID-19, as another significant event in Jewish history, and therefore do the opposite. Now, of course, I am a Reform rabbi and a progressive Jew. As such, I'm an outsider to this practice. It's up to the rabbis in the Orthodox communities to take into account all the factors surrounding the mikvah and the nidah, including its historical elements and stigmas, as well as the challenges that our new reality presents. Still, even a temporary suspension of visits to the mikvah and the halachic prohibition of sexual relations without the mikvah is not without precedent in our Jewish texts. Like so much in halakha, this custom has changed over the centuries in response to current events. And in times such as these, one can certainly argue that coronavirus is no different. So I hope that that was helpful. Found it fascinating to me. Why not talk about that subject for a while? As Reform Jews, sometimes it's a little difficult for us to get into the head of the mindset of the Orthodox, but again, it's not just words on a page. There's things that are really affecting our Orthodox friends, and best that we know about it and think about it. So with that, friends, we come to some concluding prayers of our service. Let the time not be distant, O God, when all shall turn to you in love, when corruption and evil shall give way to integrity and goodness, when superstition shall no longer enslave the mind, nor idolatry blind the eye. O may all created in your image become one in spirit and one in friendship, forever united in your service. Then shall your realm be established on earth, and the word of your prophet fulfilled. Adonai will reign forever and ever. Adonai, our God, how soon we hope to behold your perfection of our world, guided by our sacred covenant, drawn from human and divine meaning. May we gain wisdom in our lives, overflowing like a river with understanding. Loved each of us for the peace we bring to others. May our deeds exceed our speech, and may we never lift up our hand, but to conquer fear and doubt and despair. Rise up like the sun, O God, over all humanity. Cause light to go forth from the lands between the seas, and light up the universe with joy, of wholeness, of freedom, and of peace. Thus it has been said, Adonai will be sovereign over all the earth. On that day, Adonai will be one, and God's name shall be one. At the end of each one of our services, we give important thought to those who are no longer with us, those who have died in recent days or in years past at this season. We are still observing Shloshim for Dolores Fishman. And we observe Yahrzeit, the perpetual memorial, for Stefan Diamant, Allen Ginsberg, Carol Rogat, Jerome Joseph, Levi Oppenheimer, Abe Silverman, Julius Wasserman, Sarah Henning, Florence Winsky, Louis Bloom, Philip Bauer, H. Gilbert Levine, and Abraham L. Messing. To those names, we add any other names of those in your community or the community at large. If you feel comfortable, please type a name of those who have passed away in recent days or in years past at this season so that we can all grieve with you. Again, I apologize that the YouTube chat feature is not working, but on Facebook it is, so please feel free to say a name if you feel comfortable. We think, of course, of all those who have no one to say Kaddish for them, the 6 million who died in the Shoah, as we recently commemorated Yom HaShoah, and those who died defending this country and the state of Israel, as we will be commemorating Yom HaZikaron. We think, of course, of all those who have died from COVID-19, not just the victims of COVID-19, but those health workers who have died on the front lines trying to fight this disease as well. May all their memories be a blessing. We say the mourners Kaddish and honor their memories as we live on and make their memories a blessing. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlich malchutei, v'chayachon v'yomechon v'chayei d'chol beit Yisrael, v'agala v'zman kari v'imru amen. Yehei shemei Rabbah nevarach le'olam u'lalmei almayim. Yiparach v'yishtabach v'yitpa'ar v'yitromam v'yitnaseh. V'yitadar v'yitalev v'yitalal shemei d'kudesha brichu. Ve'ela min kol birchata v'shirata tushbachata v'nechamata. Ta'amiran v'yalma v'imru amen. Yehei shalom rabba min shamaya. V'chaim aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. Osei shalom b'mromav. Hu ya'aseh shalom aleinu ve'al kol Yisrael v'imru amen. May the one who brings peace to the high places bring peace over all in mourning and over all of humanity. As we say together, Amen. Well, friends, before we send you off to another beautiful Shabbat, a couple announcements. Join us for Kabbalat Shabbat services on May 1st at 7:30. And we might be able to throw in a learner's minyan at 7. So let me get back to you on that, but that sure would be nice. And like I spoke to at the beginning, if you're interested in taking a Siddur, a prayer book home to follow the virtual services, you can come in and borrow a copy of our brand new Mishkan Tefillah for Travelers. It's an abbreviated and compact Siddur for taking home. If you're interested, email Kim in our office and set up a time to come in and pick one up. Just like a lending library, we'll record your name and how many books you borrow to keep track. Now, in order to replenish the depleted prayer book fund, we are asking for a $10 donation per Siddur that you borrow. This will help us continue to purchase items in the future, including the newest books from our movement. Kim will instruct you on how to make a payment, fill out the lending form, and get your book while observing CDC social distancing guidelines. For any questions, please email us. And on Friday, May 1st, we'll give you the page numbers for those. So this week, come in and get yours so that on Friday you can follow along. As we are experiencing social distance, I will be continually uploading learning sessions onto the Temple Israel Facebook page as well as Temple Israel website. The 6th episode of Torah from a Distance is up, so please feel free to watch it. A reminder again that our offices are closed. They will remain closed. Kim is in the office on Wednesdays and Fridays from 1 to 3, but I'm in the office a lot more. but those will be the times that you want to come in and get those Mishkan tefillas. Otherwise, you may be able to deliver them. We'll check that out. But please, once again, let's try to keep the traffic in and out of our temple as minimized as possible so that we can make it uncontaminated. Okay, so our annual congregational meeting. This will take place Sunday, May 3rd at 5 p.m. We'll be holding it virtually using Zoom. We will be sending an invitation and instructions on how to join the meeting this week. The meeting is to discuss temple business. Please make it a priority to join for the meeting. We need your input. If you are worried about technology, there's ways to phone in. There's all kinds of ways to do this. So we do hope to have a large gathering for our virtual temple congregational meeting. A big thank you to everyone who was here to come out and help with the temple cleanup day. Everything looks beautiful and fresh. Everyone did an amazing job. I personally loved coming in as one of the only people coming into the temple and seeing how beautiful it is. So hopefully everyone else can enjoy it soon. And once again, we encourage people to write in for voices from quarantine. With our many members staying at home or practicing social distancing, we can feel isolated or not connected to the community. So send in a little blurb about what you've been doing, check in, let us know what's new in your life so that we can connect. You can send one in to Kim in the office. We'll print them in Thursday reminders and in monthly reminders as well. So with that, friends, I just want to once again say Shabbat Shalom to all of you, hoping that this Shabbat will be one of peace and health, and we will see you next week. And know that our prayers are with you and that we are all together. So Shabbat Shalom, and we will see you soon.